Welcome to the Authentically Elisa podcast, Reshaping Business with Integrity, the podcast where we explore how to run your business authentically and with integrity. I'm your host, Elisa Bogarts, a business coach and launch manager, helping coaches launch their programs and events that align with their business values. Together, we'll uncover the secrets to building a successful business without sacrificing morals, ethics, authenticity, or heart. Let's dive in. All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about how mindfulness is really a personal finance superpower that we all have and how we can kind of tap into that and really looking at those types of sort of financial advice that we need. Today, my guest is Jonathan DeYoe. Jonathan is a financial philosopher, advisor, trainer, client advocate, and DIY educator. He is a financial advisor turned financial coach and mindfulness teacher. He's the author of 2 best-selling books, Mindful Money and Mindful Investing, and he hosts the Mindful Money podcast. Go check that out, people. He led an award-winning San Francisco Bay Area wealth management firm focused on financial planning and client education for 20 years. Before shifting towards money coaching for people who don't have advisor access. And he does his best work where love and money intersect. Welcome, Jonathan. So good to have you here.
I'm glad to be here. Let's have a great conversation.
Yeah. So tell us, a little bit more about how you got into this field of work and just why you're so passionate and why you kind of made that switch.
Well, so how I originally got in the field of work was I was just deeply curious about investing, and I grew up without much money. So I would spend, this is at me at 9 years old, I would spend time in a local broker's office reading value line research. So
Really?
playing with GI Joe or playing sports or whatever, and I was reading the I was reading the stock pages because I was very curious about investing, and I
I
took
love
about
that.
a 7-year detour to study philosophy and religion and sort of what makes people tick. And what I noticed after that was, there's no jobs in philosophy and religion. So
No.
I started at Dean Witter right out of grad school. I dropped out of a Buddhist studies program and I started at Dean Witter in a
Wow.
sales job, and very quickly learned that all people, lots of money, not a lot of money, are sort of in a tizzy about money. They're worried, they're anxious, they are deeply stressed and very afraid when markets do weird things. And I
Yeah, we
just
think about it all the time, don't we? It's
yeah,
there
it's
constantly.
always front and center. And I'm just not afraid of it. I'm not worried about it. I guess I put it in a place and just recognize the volatility and I kind of go with it and I'm fine with it. And so I realized that was something that I could use to support people. And so I did that for many, many years with people that had a lot of money. Felt guilty about it all the time because I was raised with very little, and I wanted to help people like my parents. Um,
Mm.
and then my brother died in 21,
Oh,
and I said,
sorry.
okay, it's time to shift. And I shifted towards the coaching. I'm still an advisor, but usually when somebody needs an advisor, I introduce them to somebody else these days. And I prefer to work with people that I work with and coach and help people in a group setting that don't have access.
What does running your business with authenticity mean to you?
Just if you just kind of listen to the story,
Hmm.
it is really about finding that place in you that lights up when you do a thing. And I taught a boot camp to a nonprofit. It was a 3-day thing, 2.5 hours a day. Day one was, how do you figure out what's enough? Like, how do you figure out that number that you need to have in a pool of assets to spin off an income that'll outlive you or that you'll never outlive? And then day two was how do you build a portfolio? And day three was how do you manage that through a lifetime? And it was at the end of that, I was so jazzed. Like I loved teaching this stuff. And so I was like, okay, well, I obviously have to do this again, and again and again and again. So that's where the boot camp came from. But it was just happenstance. I've always loved talking about it. And it's nice to do the deep one-on-one comprehensive stuff with people, but it's also nice just to have a much bigger impact and so finding that thing that really lights you up. I think that's where authenticity comes from. And then you can have a much larger impact on the world because you're lit up. You go through life just happier and people see it and they go, "Oh, what is this guy doing? Like he's having such a good time doing this." And so it's really easy to teach. It's really easy to support. It's really easy to go to work every day if you love what you're doing. So figure out what that is. For me, I happen to meditate every day, and that helps me sort through all the questions and all the what ifs and all the what do I want to do's.
Mm.
Whatever the practice is, something reflective helps people get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great little action to take if you're kind of like, I don't really know. Or if I do kind of know what lights me up, how could I turn it into like a business? But it's so true what you said about, it just really, really supercharges you and gives you the energy. And when you are entirely lit up, yeah, you can't help but be authentic. I know that some people when they're like that, they'll sort of like be working until 2 in the morning or something. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you need some sleep, don't get sucked into that North American, like you have to work all the time. And this friend of mine was like, but I'm not. This is so much fun to me. I'm just like, I just couldn't stop like sort of playing with my business and doing these things because it just lit him up so much that like he could just work on and on and on and on, which I thought was pretty amazing.
I think after many years of doing that and loving what I do, I did actually sort of recently have this thought that I wrote about it literally yesterday, or I published it on Monday. I had this thought that for many years I was driven, like I had to do this work. And what I realized was I'm not, there's enough people doing this work that I don't have to put as much. It's not, it's not that I feel bad about putting it in, but I overdid it. So reference to a friend who can constantly do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. I think it's really important, even if you love what you do, to recharge and to back off and to not take yourself so seriously. I used to think that I was the one that was driving the industry in the direction that it needed to be driven. And now I'm like, oh my God, there's thousands of people that are doing the work and are doing it well. And Jonathan, you don't have to, you know, engage at every level all the time. You can lean back a little bit. You can relax a little bit. And I think that's for my particular makeup and character, I need to give myself permission to do that.
Yeah, me too, 100%. And sometimes I have to like talk myself, and especially in a day, if I have like, there's like a lot to do in my to-do list and I haven't checked it up and back-to-back meetings. And then I'm like, oh, but I got to eat because I know that if I don't eat, like I'm just going to fall apart in the afternoon, right? So then sometimes I have to tell myself like, Elisa, it's okay for you to take a 30-minute break to have some lunch.
Yeah. Yes,
Like you're
exactly.
you're allowed to do that. Like don't feel bad about it. Don't be thinking about, don't do it. Don't eat at your desk. Like just go get away for, go like, replenish yourself so then you can, continue working in the afternoon.
Yeah, and that's the lunch. That's also, a 5 minute break between meetings. It's also a weekend away every quarter, and maybe it's a week away, 2 weeks away, a vacation occasionally. And there were years where I didn't take vacations and years where I didn't, I just work because I did. I said it wasn't work. Like I love this. So,
Mm.
but you gotta diversify your time spend. You can't just be work all the time.
I 100% agree. And I really learned that because I lived and worked in Europe for 10 years. And so they have very different sort of work culture, which is very much,
Yep.
they give you 5 weeks of vacation. And so it was very much about that, like, you first, and we're not going to make you like work overtime. And like, of course you can or whatever, but like, it was very much the focus of like, self-care, go take care of yourself. So when I came back to Vancouver and in North America, I'm like, what? It's 5 o'clock. Like I'm done. It was very much just like, no, you can't wrap me into that culture. And yeah, I very much have that mindset as well, which I think it's a lot healthier.
Yeah, for sure. Get a balance, create a balance.
Yes, exactly. Create a balance. So how do you think that we can start to reshape business to be more in integrity, especially I think in the financial world sometimes, especially talking about money, there's so many sides of money and sort of it has a very dark shadow side to it as well, if you will. And like we were talking about earlier, people can get so worried and upset about it. And so, yeah, how do you think that we can start reshaping business to be more in integrity?
there is something that I trust about business. And maybe this is unique. I'm not sure. And this will sort of circle around to the answer to the question. The thing I trust about business is businesses serve customers, and
Yes.
businesses that serve customers better, delight customers better, um, survive and are more profitable and are better. And so, from our standpoint as consumers, as customers, we can demand that businesses do things better. And so collectively, we have an enormous amount of power. Individually,
Mhm.
it's a little bit more difficult because if I don't shop at a certain store, that store really doesn't care because I'm just one person.
Right.
But in the world that we work in, when we're working with small businesses and solopreneurs and it's really easy to explain to them and coach them in this process of uh, being better. Like if you get up in the morning and you decide, you know what, the thing that I need to do is make myself a better person. And by making myself a better person, I'll be a better business person. I'll be a better parent. I'll be a better friend. But so, and I think that there's a lot of things that we can do to do that. And I think one of the things that's helped me in my career, in my life, is I have a very, and this is crazy maybe, have a very strong morning routine. Like I read, I write, I meditate, I work out, I go for a walk, I stretch, and I do these things every morning. And every morning it sets me up to have a very good headspace when I go into the day, when I butt heads with my spouse, when I have an argument with somebody at work, or when I'm ready for it. I'm prepared. I am softer. I can tai chi the issues out of the way. I can be more present. I can be more engaged. And if I'm better, it's easier for other people to provide better services, and it's less combative. It's just I think I guess the old saying, you be the change you want to see in the world. I
Hmm.
think that the place we can make the most effect and have the most impact is on ourselves. And by having that impact on ourselves, um, we show it better. And when we show it better, businesses are better. And if we can lead others in this, I think it's a beautiful thing and everything gets better, business included.
I 100% resonate with it. And um, I did this course a couple of years ago, and I'm actually redoing it now because it's like part of this other program, and it's all about positive intelligence. It's like known as PQ for short. And it talks about that, like especially in the morning, you want to really do have a morning routine. And with them, it's all about, basically it's like about being present, but not necessarily with meditating, but it's like, how can, even when you're walking, can you like focus on your feet? If you're brushing your teeth, can you focus on what it feels like when you're eating and you like, really taste the food, even close your eyes and enjoy it, just to actually be present in these moments and all these little things really like amp up that high energy and that high vibe in your brain. And he calls it the sage, like being in sage mode. And you're
Mm.
right. So when you get set up in that way, you're well more equipped to handle things throughout the day. Where if you sort of wake up and maybe immediately look at your phone and you're already like wrapped into your emails and you saw some annoying message from your assistant who didn't do something, and you're like immediately you're in like a bad state of mind or like a lower, vibration and maybe like a judgeful place or whatever and dealing with stress already. But if you can sort of not do that and focus on these all these other things within your morning routine, it really does set up your mind to be able to deal with things in a much better way.
I like what you said there, sage mode. I'm going to write that down and put on on my monitor. Sage mode. That's what you want, is you want to be in sage mode.
Yeah, yeah. And because when you're in that place, you can, instead of, getting angry about something or judging it or putting pressure on people, you can be like, okay, well, how can I have maybe more empathy, or what can I do to help solve this problem, or what can I advise, or what can I put into action? You're in this a totally different mindset of how to respond to things, which yeah. So if you do that morning routine, it really sets you up.
Yep. There's also this we don't the reason that I'm just going to use a quick example. The reason that Jeff Bezos has the money that Jeff Bezos has, and the reason that he has the power that he has, is because we gave it to him. We all collectively for the last 20 years have shopped at Amazon more and more and more and more. And that has created this behemoth of wealth known as Jeff Bezos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we collectively choose to maybe shop less at Amazon and maybe shop at a go to a local grocer, you know, go to local stores to buy stuff, then we empower those local people. And so we make the choice as consumers, as customers, and that's we yield our power or we support our local community. Like it's really be intentional, know how it works, understand the dynamic, and do something differently. We can all take action to make things to support the local community a little bit better, and that I think drives better business practices. I think it's a way to when you see a business that's doing great work, support that business. Tell people about it. Go there. When you see a business that's maybe less positive for the world, maybe shop there less. And note that that's the power that you have. And if you're not, it's super convenient. I have Amazon boxes coming to my house, at least once a week. It's super convenient. My kids need something tomorrow. I boom, I get it for them tomorrow. It's like it's easy to do, but recognize that this has an impact.
Yes, 100%. And that was actually thinking about that earlier when we were talking about that's something I don't know how many years ago. Maybe it was actually when I moved back to Vancouver, about like 8 or 9 years ago, and really made that choice of being like, okay, what kind of consumer do I want to be? And I really thought about that because like to me, like choosing products that have not been tested on animals, choosing products that come in, if
Exactly.
they are in plastic bottles, it's recycled plastic and and choosing local and choosing Canadian and I very much like have done that. And I always, I even walk to my grocery store. I grab a backpack and I walk to it. I mean, I am single and on my own, so like it's much easier to carry my food that way. It'd be very different if you had a family, I suppose. But you wouldn't be able to carry all of that. But I definitely do that and choose.
Yeah,
I made a conscious choice to choose all these things and fill my house with it because, yeah, because I wanted to. I made the choice to go more local and to say like, what are my values and what products actually support that.
absolutely.
Right. So let's talk about, the value of advice and what advice has value versus what people often like, seek from, say, like a financial advisor. Um, and yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean by that? Like that, what advice has value and how it's different?
Yeah, I think it's important to differentiate. Well, not differentiate. I think it's important to understand why people seek advice.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people believe that, and this comes out of conversations for the last 30 years with clients. A lot of people believe that what people in the financial services industry do is they manage investments. And I think to the extent that that's true, I think the advisor that is managing investments is lying to their clients
Mm.
because if you just think very simply about the big things that have happened that affect markets, um, no one saw them coming. Like markets are inherently unpredictable. We
Right.
didn't, we do not know what is just around the corner. We didn't know when COVID was going to come. We didn't know when 9/11 was going to happen. We didn't know when the Great Recession was going to happen. We don't know when, what's going to tip the market over. We don't know how long it's going to go down. We don't know how long it's going to stay down. We don't know what trigger is going to make it come back. We don't know how long it's going to take for it to come back. We don't know. So we don't know. We can't know. And we need to be mindful of this lack of knowledge or this inability to know this thing. And then apply that to an expectation from an advisor because an advisor doesn't know either.
Right.
That doesn't mean that advisor doesn't provide value. It just means you have to hire them to do the right thing. And so there is enormous value in advice and coaching, enormous value. But if someone is offering you something that they can't actually provide, or if you're seeking something that no one can actually give you, then you're going to be disappointed and you're going to have outcomes that are not beneficial. So with that framing, the thing that I think advisors do is I think that there's maybe two, three things that they do. The first thing they do is we've gone through this whole thing with clients hundreds of times. Like I've worked with 500 families in my career. And so I kind of know like the arc of life. I know what sorts of things people do and plan for and think about in terms of their money long before they know or do or think about them. Like I know someone that's 25 is going to think about marriage and they're going to start thinking about kids. And that means maybe public versus private school. It means and kids aren't cheap and saving for college and it's all this kind of stuff. And I know that someone that's 30 isn't thinking about retirement, and 40 might be starting to think about retirement, and 50 is starting to get worried about retirement, and 60 is downright panicked. But I don't. Uh, so what an advisor can do is help them sort of pre-experience these things and prioritize and put them into a plan. So it's like these are the set of goals that you're going to be worried about. This is how you plan for those goals. And then the last thing is, and probably the most important thing advisors can do, is help them stay on plan when it's important, when it's hard, and help them decide when it's time to change the plan. And that's not prediction. It's not figuring out what's going on in the markets and economies. It's helping them understand what they're doing, what decisions they need to make, because their life changes, and that's a life and a planning orientation instead of a market or a performance orientation. So enormous value if applied in the right way.
Yes. And I think like as you were talking about that, about, like the 25-year-old that's maybe starting to think about marriage or what or kids, they're definitely not thinking about retirement. And I remember when I think I was 25 or 26 and I was working in the Netherlands and they brought in a thing being like everybody has to pay towards their retirement. Like they has their like, like a retirement fund or I can't remember what it was called then. Maybe it's just pension. And it was like, I remember being like, what? I'm not doing that. Like, I don't want to give a percentage of a thing. I want to use that to go traveling. I was planning to go to, Munich next weekend. Like that was my travel money. And like, we were forced to through my company. And actually it was quite smart to make us do it because like if you actually invest in your retirement, even though it's like so far away, you're not even thinking about it. You do want to start doing that when you're young because like, the amount of, the money will turn into more as opposed to you starting later. And yeah, so I'm kind of grateful to being forced to doing that. But I do remember having that being like, I'm not doing that.
Totally. So it's an
Yeah.
experience we all have as we start off. I want to use this money to spend. Like,
hmm Yeah, I just started making money. Come on. Like, I want to go do stuff with it. I want to put it somewhere for me to use in 40
and
years' time.
I mean, it's interesting because there is a certain amount of that that's expected and that you should, take advantage of. You should reinvest and take classes and learn things, and you should travel, and it'll make you a more well-rounded person, make you a better employee. It'll actually help you earn more eventually. And so these are all positive things, but it's really good to put them in the context of life and understand what might be coming down the pipe.
hmm Yeah, and it's like that yes and like yes, so this amount of money can be towards that, and you also want to put this small percentage over here for retirement, a small percentage here for whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so allocate it out. Yeah. So, what is the single most important metric for determining a good investment?
If you compare um, uh, if you're looking at it, basically what I'm saying is there's the thing that we look at that we compare across the universe of investments. Um, given this a few fundamentals. So there's some fundamental things if you're going to be a mindful investor, there's sort of three fundamentals, and it's asset allocation, diversification, rebalancing. Happy to go in any one of those three. But if you assume those three, then the very next thing that'll help you determine what the best possible investment is cost. When you stack up all the different funds or ETFs or investment options that are part of an asset allocation and are broadly diversified and will be used in a rebalancing procedure. If you look at US and you sort of stack up all the different investments you can use and you can engage in the US, and then you just eliminate the 95 or 98% of them that are higher costs. You stack them up by cost and just use the lowest cost ones. Those will be better.
Hmm.
So the price you pay for the investment that you own, whether it's a fund or an ETF, largely determines where that fund ends up in its 15 or 20-year performance number. Um,
Hmm.
and that's really important to understand because most people are like, how do I pick the best investment? Well, this one has a 5-year track record that's better than all the other 5-year track records. And you think about people choosing the funds in their 401k or 403b or retirement program. They often, I'll get an email, hey, Jonathan, here's the 6 funds. I think I should use this one because it has the highest performance. Almost always, that's the one that's going to be the underperformer for the next 5 years.
Hmm.
So looking at the internal cost is the best way to determine how that will do over a long period of time.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yep.
That's great. I hadn't really thought about that perspective before. Very helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
Um, so I always like to take like for everybody to kind of come away with sort of like an action to do. And I know that you have this sort of where do I start thing that we're going to actually share in the show notes for everybody to go check that out. So and I know that that's something that could be really helpful for them to do. So talk to us about that. What is that on your mindful money website?
Yeah, yeah. So just 2 seconds ago, we talked about, what is the value an advisor can provide, or what is the real value people should seek.
Mm.
Um, And for people that have a lot of money or a lot of complexity, then they will often get this, very comprehensive financial plan, 100 pages, 80 pages that integrates everything in their lives. And there's a lot of value of that if you have millions and own businesses in real estate and all kinds of stuff.
Mm.
But most of us, 98% of us, really just need a modular plan. And what a modular plan is okay, what should I be working on now? What is the thing that I should do today that will help me, advance all of my goals and get me to that space and what we've done is we've created this survey or this brief questionnaire, and it's just mindful.money/ where do I start? It's very simple. And it's just a series of questions that has logic behind it. And when people go through those questions, the questions will guide you to the questions that are appropriate. You answer one question, it opens up the door to the next set of questions. At the end, maybe 12 questions. At the end, it goes to a web page, and that web page has a 2-minute video from me saying this is what you should be working on. It has a step-by-step process for you to engage either yourself. You can do it yourself, or there's a class that you can take, or there's you can join the membership for support. And so it goes right to a place where this is what you should work on. And so people try to figure out, where should I start? It tells you where you should start, and gives you the steps to take.
Perfect. And that course as well, I believe is free, right? Is the value purpose goals one?
Yeah, one of the things that it's included in every single one of those pages is it's about a 2-hour process to determine values, purpose, goals, and we have a whole course built in that's free that anyone can take. That's actually on that landing page.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. Go
You bet.
check it out, everybody. Well, this has been just such an interesting conversation. We like covered so many different things that I just love about absolutely love that. But we kind of started with, about sort of figuring out, what you want to do with your business, like finding that place, a thing that really lights you up when you do it and really doing that. And if we can all sort of, have a mindset every day of like, how can I be better? How can I, like, what can I do to give back, sort of to the world and to the business, which eventually actually will help businesses be more in integrity. And one of the things we talked about was having a morning routine, which really sets you up for success, and that we all have choice, right? Every day we have choice of what we do. And so maybe have a thought about thinking about that, what really aligns with you, and are your choices, aligned with your integrity, whether that be in business or professional life. And we also, had some amazing financial advice just now, what you can do, and definitely go check out the Where Do I Start questionnaire. There will be a link in the show notes so that you can know where do you start, where your next step is, and then you'll even get access to a free course. And of course, there's information there about how you can work with Jonathan. So just to finish us off, so yeah, let us, our listeners, know where they can find you online.
Yeah, the best place to find me online is at mindful.money. That's the website. And I'm also the social media, only real social media I engage in is LinkedIn. And I'm there and I'm happy to connect to folks and I answer questions all the time.
Awesome. Thank you. And do you have any final words of wisdom?
I do, and thanks for asking. There's sort of a three-step thing, and the first is to stop predicting. The second is to start planning, and then always stay mindful.
Ah, that I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it inspired you to live a more authentic life. I'd love your help in inspiring more people to live authentically. So please follow, rate, and leave a review so we can create a ripple effect of authenticity. Until next time, stay true to you, be bold, and thrive on your own terms. This is Elisa, signing off authentically.